It's a tough question. Can you really forgive treason? I'm 29, my wife is 30, and we've spent the last 7.5 years together. We've got 2 kids, a mortgage on our apartment, a car, and we live together with family. Money can be tight sometimes, but we're not struggling. We manage to treat ourselves here and there. Then, one day, I came across her social media posts and got furious. After a little scene, I asked her to stop talking to one guy. She seemed to comply, but one morning I saw a message on her account saying, "Call me back." It pissed me off. She replied that he should not contact her and leave her alone. Then I realized that something was wrong and decided to dig deeper. I checked her call log and found that she had been texting with this guy for 2 months, about 500 messages a month, plus calls. At first she denied it, but eventually admitted that she had been in contact with a man from her job. I mean, how confusing can it be when the first call from him comes in at 1 in the morning while I'm sound asleep? I was furious and desperately trying to get to the bottom of it. She kept covering one lie with another, and eventually I found out they'd gone for drives together and visited some not-so-great spots. She always made it home on time, and I never suspected anything was amiss. Sure, I was busy with work and often had to stay late, but I didn't see this coming. Later on, she confessed that they had driven around and talked, that he was pursuing her and she enjoyed it. She claimed they met about 8 or 9 times. That was when I started thinking of her as a traitor and kept asking if they'd slept together. Eventually, I discovered their message history on a dating site, and there were some terms of endearment she never used with me. It turned out she was the one who initiated their meetings at first, and the stories started to unravel. She said it all began because she felt neglected at work. She'd only been there for 4 months, and the staff wasn't very friendly. She craved attention, so she started chatting on a dating site, feeling like our relationship had become more like a business partnership in parenting than a loving marriage. I won't deny that things had cooled off for us during those first 7 years. Living with my mother-in-law and having 2 kids meant we sometimes even slept in separate beds, since our youngest always wanted to cuddle with Mom. But when we finally bought our apartment and moved in together, things began to improve. Our relationship and shared goals started to take shape. We always dreamed of having our own space, and that dream finally came true. We barely had 6 months to settle in before everything fell apart. She mentioned that meeting him made her feel youthful again. I started to understand her a bit more, but I kept asking if they had been intimate. Interestingly, her lover is also married with a child. He insisted on the phone that nothing had happened, that they were just friends chatting. He even promised to stop messaging her and urged me to pay more attention to her. I even consulted fortune tellers, who assured me there was nothing going on and that I needed to give her more affection. So I bought her flowers and decided to surprise her at work. She was thrilled that I was trying to understand her feelings. Shortly after that, we celebrated our 8th wedding anniversary with family. I set the table, and she dressed up like a bride. We agreed not to exchange gifts, but I couldn't resist getting her a new engagement ring since the old one had seen better days. She was overjoyed, and for a while, our relationship flourished. Our intimacy became more frequent. Still, doubt crept in about her fidelity. Then one day, with tears streaming down her face, she confessed that they had slept together. Just once, she claimed. I can believe the timing because I had seen her phone's location history, which matched up. She was confused about what had happened, even suggesting it was like she was hypnotized. According to her, during the encounter, if you could even call it that, she kicked him away after just a minute. They were in the back seat of his car, which means she had to move there from the front. She had the chance to come to her senses. On the way back, he told her she didn't know what she wanted, and they ended up fighting. That rejection does suggest she might have realized something, but it's hard to ignore the fact that before this, they had shared meetings, hugs, and kisses. I don't know whether to trust her or not because, prior to this, she had sworn on our children's lives that there was no intimacy. I'd have to be blind not to see what was happening. She seemed to enjoy the attention, reveling in the fact that she wasn't as old as she felt and that people were interested in her. And I can't help but feel jealous. I constantly worried about her getting messages or calls from other guys. Now, I feel stuck at work and have major trust issues. Honestly, I've reached my breaking point. She claims to regret what she did and says she's very sorry. But I struggle to believe her. Part of me wants to trust her again, but I just can't. Loyalty is everything to me. I feel lost, like I've dropped 10 kilograms, and life seems pointless. I even considered ending it all, but I pulled back. I thought about leaving the house, but the kids would cry. She's already overwhelmed trying to juggle the kindergarten and school runs. Sure, our parents could help out, but it wouldn't be easy. I love her, but I'm conflicted about my feelings. I don't want to love her anymore. And then there are the kids, just 4 and 7 years old. I'm torn between the positives, like our mortgage and everything we've built together, and whether to let it all go or try to forgive her. I've come to realize that our relationship will never be the same again. Many people mess up their lives by forgiving and moving on, but all I want is a family with a loyal wife. In our 9 years of dating, I've never cheated. It never crossed my mind. So what do we do now, my friends? I'm not a heavy drinker. I don't go out partying. Honestly, I've always been a pretty stable guy. After everything that happened, it took me a long time to find my footing again. I'd sit alone in a dark room each evening, replaying memories of how we built our lives together. The hope for healing clashed with my growing distrust, and I felt completely lost about what to do next. Eventually, I decided to have a heart-to-heart with her. One quiet evening, while the kids were asleep, I laid it all out, my pain and sense of betrayal. She listened intently, and I could see the tears welling up in her eyes. She opened up about feeling lonely, saying that the daily grind had drained our intimacy. We talked about ways to rebuild trust, landing on honest communication as a starting point. We even agreed to try family therapy. A few weeks went by, and I noticed a shift. We started spending more quality time together, rediscovering the joy we once had. One day, while we were out with the kids, I saw her laughing and playing with them. In that moment, I felt a spark of love for her again. I realized I was ready to put in the effort for the sake of our family. We're turning the page to a new chapter, and even though it's not going to be easy, I'm hopeful that we can create something even better than before.